The moment Emily opened the envelope, her hands shook. Inside was a letter, typed but unsigned, with words that made her blood run cold. I know what you did, and soon everyone will. She froze, the room suddenly feeling too small, the air thick. How could someone know her secret? She hadn't told a soul. Her phone buzzed insistently, but she ignored it, afraid to see who else might be involved. The words echoed in her mind, louder than any noise outside. Emily's heart raced as memories she had buried for years resurfaced. Was it possible that her past, which she had tried so hard to forget, was catching up with her? Across town, Mark was staring at his own envelope, identical to hers. His face went pale as he read the threatening words, and a shiver ran down his spine. This was not a coincidence. Someone was watching them, controlling their every move. He couldn't tell Emily yet. The timing had to be right. Emily tried to call her best friend Sarah, but the line went dead. Panic settled in like a heavy fog, but she forced herself to stay calm. She knew she had to find out who sent the letter, or at least what they wanted. Each step she took toward the truth made her feel more exposed, like walking on a thin wire above a dark abyss. Mark, meanwhile, felt the walls closing in. He remembered the events from 10 years ago, events he had hoped were buried forever. But someone was digging them up, one clue at a time. He had to warn Emily, but how? Reaching out too soon could trigger the very danger they were trying to avoid. Emily's eyes darted around her apartment, noticing shadows she had never seen before. Every creak in the floorboards, every whisper of wind against the window felt like a signal. She realized, with a sinking heart, that she was no longer alone, and the worst was yet to come. Emily's footsteps echoed in the empty alley as she tried to shake the man who had been following her. She ducked behind a corner, holding her breath, and watched as he passed. Something about his stride seemed familiar, but she couldn't place it. Her mind raced, connecting fragments of memories she had buried for years. Mark, meanwhile, was frantically digging through old files at his apartment. He had to understand who was behind the letters. Every document, every photograph, every name triggered memories he had tried to forget. Then, buried beneath a stack of invoices, he found an old journal, one that contained entries he had never written, yet bore his handwriting. Confusion and fear collided inside him. Emily returned home cautiously, only to find a package slipped under her door. Inside was a small, black USB drive. No note, no explanation, just the drive. Her heart pounded as she realized someone wanted her to find it. With trembling hands, she plugged it into her laptop and was greeted with a video of her apartment, Mark clearly visible in the frame, unaware he was being watched too. Panic surged through her. Every careful step she had taken now seemed worthless. She watched as the video zoomed in on Mark, then panned to something behind him, something moving. Emily gasped, recognizing the shape of a figure from her past, one she had believed gone forever. The memory of a secret shared in silence hit her like a physical blow. Mark's phone buzzed again. A message appeared. Look closer. You can't escape what you've both done. He froze. The journal, the letters, the mysterious video, they were all connected. Someone knew the truth about their past, and it was worse than either of them could imagine. They weren't being followed by a stranger. They were being hunted by someone who knew their deepest secrets. Emily and Mark both felt it at the same time. The past had returned with a vengeance, and nothing would ever be the same. A shadow moved across Emily's wall, but when she spun around, no one was there. Her instincts screamed danger, and she realized, with growing dread, that the worst was still about to explode.
Emily couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been inside her apartment. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow on the walls made her heart race. She glanced at the USB drive again, realizing that whoever sent it had been watching her for days, maybe weeks. A cold dread settled in her chest. Mark arrived at her apartment, his face pale. He carried the old journal and a stack of photographs he had found hidden behind the bookcase. "Emily," he whispered, "there's more to this than I thought. Look at these." They spread the photos across the table, images of them together as children, moments they didn't remember, places they never thought were connected. As they examined the photos, Emily noticed something that made her blood run cold. In every picture, a figure lurked in the background, always the same shadowy person. Their face was always obscured, but the presence was unmistakable. Mark shivered. "It's like someone's been tracking us our whole lives," he said, voice trembling. Emily's mind went back to a summer she had tried to forget, the summer she had lost someone close. Suddenly, the pieces started falling into place. The letters, the journal, the videos, they weren't random. Someone wanted them to remember, and the more they remembered, the closer they got to something dangerous. A sudden knock on the door made them jump. Neither had expected visitors. Emily slowly approached and peered through the peehole. No one. But a small envelope had been slipped under the door. Inside was a single photograph showing Emily and Mark as children, standing in front of a house neither of them recognized. Written on the back in messy handwriting, "You thought it was over. You were wrong." Mark and Emily exchanged a look of sheer terror. The past wasn't just coming back. It had been lying in wait, watching them. And now it was moving. Emily swallowed hard, realizing that the secrets they had buried were about to shatter their world completely.
Emily stared at the photograph on the table, her hands trembling. The house in the picture looked familiar, yet she couldn't place it. Mark's eyes darted nervously around the room. "Emily, what if someone we trusted was involved in all of this?" His voice was barely a whisper, but it hit her like a punch. They flipped through the journal again, and a folded piece of paper fell out. It was a letter written in a shaky, almost childlike hand. The words were simple, but the message was clear. "Do not trust the ones who know you best." Emily felt her stomach drop. Who could it be? Someone from their family? A childhood friend? Suddenly, Emily remembered a conversation she overheard years ago, something about a hidden family secret she had dismissed at the time. The memory resurfaced with terrifying clarity. "Mark, it was never just strangers," she said, her voice barely audible. "Someone close to us has been pulling the strings all along." Mark's face paled. He pulled out the photos again, this time focusing on small, easy-to-miss details. A ring on a hand, a pattern in the background, the same shadowy figure subtly appearing in the corner. Each clue pointed towards someone they had both trusted implicitly. Emily felt her chest tighten. They spent hours piecing together the puzzle, each discovery more unsettling than the last. The betrayal was not only real, it was calculated. Someone had been planning this for decades, manipulating their lives like pawns in a sinister game. Emily's mind raced. "We have to find out who it is before they strike again," she said. As they prepared to leave for the location in the photograph, a soft vibration came from Emily's pocket. It was another message, simple and chilling. "You're closer than you think. Don't look back." Emily froze. Mark's hand gripped hers tightly. The shadows of the past were closing in, and the worst betrayal was still waiting to be revealed. Emily and Mark drove in silence, the city lights flickering past like warning signs. Every turn brought a mix of hope and dread. The address from the photograph led them to an old, abandoned warehouse on the outskirts.
The building seemed harmless at first, but the air around it was thick with unease. Emily's heart raced as she scanned the room. In the corner, a shadow moved, quick and deliberate. "Mark, did you see that?" she whispered, but before he could respond, the shadow detached from the wall. It was Daniel, Emily's longtime friend. His face was pale, eyes cold. "You shouldn't have come here," he said quietly, yet every word carried a weight of threat. Emily's chest felt like it would explode. She had trusted Daniel for years. How could he be involved? Daniel stepped closer, and a crumpled envelope fell from his coat. "I didn't want it to come to this," he murmured. Emily picked up the envelope, revealing documents that connected Daniel directly to the mysterious events that had haunted their lives. It wasn't just betrayal. It was calculated, methodical, and personal. Emily's hand tightened on hers. "Emily, I never thought," his voice faltered. They had been blind to the truth, blinded by trust. The realization hit like a thunderclap. Someone they loved, someone they confided in, had been orchestrating chaos from the shadows all along. Emily felt the cold sting of tears. She looked at Daniel, searching for any hint of remorse, but found none. He was calm, composed, almost detached. And then he whispered the words that froze her blood. "This is only the beginning. You have no idea what's coming." The warehouse echoed with the threat, and the next revelation would shatter everything they thought they knew.
Emily couldn't shake the words Daniel had whispered. They echoed in her mind like a dark refrain. Mark tried to comfort her, but even his presence couldn't erase the feeling that danger was closer than ever. The envelope in her hand trembled, revealing secrets she never imagined could exist. Back at her apartment, Emily spread the documents across the table. Names, dates, and places linked her family to events she had only heard whispers of as a child. Someone had been watching her, planning every step of her life with cold precision. She realized her past was not as innocent as she had believed. Mark leaned over, pointing to a particular date. "Emily, this is the day your father disappeared." His voice was hushed, filled with disbelief. Emily's stomach turned. Memories she had buried resurfaced, fragments of a story she had refused to confront. Suddenly, the pieces began to form a chilling pattern. A knock at the door made them both jump. Emily froze, heart racing. Outside, a figure stood in the shadows, too far to see clearly, yet familiar in a haunting way. Before she could react, the figure slipped a small black envelope under the door and vanished. Emily picked it up with shaking hands. Inside was a single photograph. Her mother, smiling, but with a strange symbol marked in the background. Emily's breath caught in her throat. How could her mother be connected to all of this? Every assumption she had about her family was crumbling. The past wasn't just a memory, it was alive, watching, and dangerous. Mark placed a hand on her shoulder. "Emily, whatever is coming, we face it together." But Emily's eyes were fixed on the photograph, a realization dawning. Someone had orchestrated this entire journey to lead her here, and the next revelation would put her directly in the crosshairs of a secret that could destroy everything she loved. Emily clutched the photograph like a lifeline, her mind racing. Mark tried to reason with her, but every word felt distant, drowned out by the storm of questions. Who could she trust anymore? Every familiar face seemed to hide secrets, and the shadows of the past were closing in fast. Suddenly, a soft knock came from the window. Emily and Mark froze, staring at the dark outline outside. Before either could react, a man in a dark jacket slid into the room silently. His eyes were sharp, calculating, but not unkind. "You don't know me," he said, voice low, "but I can help you. You're running out of time." Emily's heart pounded. "Who are you? How do we know we can trust you?" she demanded. The man handed her a small device, a USB drive filled with encrypted files. "Everything you've uncovered is only the beginning," he whispered. "They're watching your every move. You need to see the truth before it's too late." Mark frowned, skeptical, but Emily's curiosity burned brighter than her fear. She inserted the drive into her laptop, revealing documents, videos, and recordings that painted a picture darker than she could have imagined. Corruption, betrayal, and lies ran deep, connecting powerful people to her family in ways she had never suspected. The man glanced at the clock. "You have less than 48 hours before they move," he warned. Emily felt a chill run down her spine. The envelope, the photograph, the documents, it was all leading to a confrontation she wasn't sure she was ready for. But running was no longer an option. Emily looked up, determination in her eyes. "If we're going to survive this, we need to act now. But we have to be smart. Every step we take will be watched." Mark nodded, and together they formulated a plan. Yet, as they set their strategy into motion, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that the man sitting beside them might not be entirely he seems. Emily and Mark moved carefully through the city streets, shadows hiding them as they followed the man's instructions. Every corner seemed dangerous, every passerby a potential threat. The city that once felt familiar now felt like a labyrinth of secrets. They arrived at a quiet cafe where the man insisted they meet someone who could provide more answers. Emily felt uneasy. Trust had become a fragile luxury, but she knew they couldn't refuse. Sitting at the corner table was a woman with piercing eyes, scanning their faces like a hawk. "I'm Rachel," the woman said, voice calm but firm. "I've been waiting for you. I know about the photograph and the files, but there's something you need to understand. Someone very close to you is not who you think they are." Emily's stomach churned. "Who?" she asked. But Rachel just shook her head. Before Rachel could answer, Mark's phone buzzed. A text appeared from an unknown number. "Stop looking, or you'll regret it. A friend." Mark's hand trembled as he showed Emily. The message was a warning and a trap. Emily realized that danger wasn't just around them. It was already inside their circle. Rachel leaned in. "You're not safe with anyone you know. Trust is a weapon, and betrayal is closer than you think." Emily's mind raced. Could it be Mark? Or even the mysterious man who had helped them? Every face they had believed in now carried a shadow of doubt. Suddenly, the cafe door opened, and a familiar figure stepped in. Emily froze. The person smiled warmly, but Emily's instinct screamed otherwise. In that moment, she understood the painful truth. The first betrayal had already begun, and it was someone she never suspected. Emily's heart raced as she stared at the person entering the cafe. Every step they took seemed deliberate, calculated, and terrifying. The warm smile did nothing to hide the glint in their eyes, a glint that sent a shiver down Emily's spine. Mark tensed beside her, sensing her fear. "Emily, what is it?" he asked, but Emily couldn't speak. Her mind was a whirlwind of disbelief and dread. This was someone she had trusted completely, someone she had confided in without a second thought. The figure approached the table slowly. "Surprised to see me?" they asked, voice calm yet menacing. Emily realized it was her own cousin, someone she had grown up with, someone who had shared her secrets and fears. Betrayal had taken a human shape she never expected. Rachel leaned in. "This is the one I warned you about. They've been feeding information to the enemy for months. Every move, every plan, you've been watched." Emily felt the room spin. All the clues, all the strange coincidences, they were pieces of a puzzle she had never wanted to solve. Mark's hands clenched into fists. "Why?" he demanded. "Why would you do this to Emily, to us?" The cousin smiled wider. "It's not personal. It's just business. And some secrets are worth more than loyalty." Emily's chest ached with a mixture of rage and heartbreak. As the cousin left the cafe, leaving tension and disbelief in their wake, Emily and Mark realized the truth. Trust was a fragile illusion, and danger lurked in the most familiar faces. Emily whispered, almost to herself, "We thought we knew everyone, but the real threat was closer than we ever imagined." But the worst was still to come. Emily couldn't sleep that night. Every memory of her cousin's betrayal replayed in her mind like a broken record. The thought that someone so close could deceive her gnawed at her soul, leaving her restless and anxious. Mark tried to comfort her, but Emily shook her head. "It's not just betrayal," she whispered. "There's something bigger here, something I can't see yet." The unease in her voice mirrored the storm brewing outside, dark clouds reflecting the uncertainty in her heart. The next morning, Emily returned to her apartment to find an envelope slipped under her door. No return address, no signature, only a single line written in bold, sharp handwriting. "Look closer at what you've ignored." Her pulse quickened as she opened it, revealing photographs of Emily as a child, always near her cousin, always smiling, always unaware of the hidden glances from unknown figures. Someone had been watching her life long before the betrayal. The revelation was chilling. Trust, it seemed, had been manipulated for years. Mark studied the photographs with her. These aren't just pictures," he murmured. "They're warnings. Someone wanted you to see this now. But why?" Emily's mind raced, piecing together fragments of memories that suddenly felt like clues. The sun set, painting the sky in streaks of crimson. Emily felt a strange mix of fear and determination. The past was no longer a memory. It was a map, and someone had been leading her down a path she might not survive. But the worst was still to come. Emily stared at the photos again, feeling the weight of eyes she hadn't even known were on her. Each image seemed to tell a story, a narrative she had missed. Someone had been orchestrating events in her life, like a puppeteer pulling strings from the shadows. Mark leaned closer, tracing a finger over one of the photographs. "Look here," he said quietly. A familiar figure stood behind her in the background, half hidden, watching silently. Emily's stomach twisted. That person? She knew that face, though she couldn't place it. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Emily avoided her phone calls, distracted by the creeping suspicion that her life had been a carefully staged illusion. Every friend, every casual encounter, it all felt like it had been designed for a purpose. The thought made her chest tighten. That evening, a knock at her door startled her. No one should be there. She hadn't told anyone where she was staying. Slowly, she opened it, revealing an envelope slightly larger than the first. Inside was a journal, bound in worn leather, with her name written on the cover. She opened it cautiously. The pages were filled with observations, notes, and dates that spanned years. Someone had meticulously documented her life. Every fear, every hope, every mistake was recorded as though they were waiting for the right moment to reveal it all. Mark watched her face as she read. "Emily, this is bigger than we thought." Her hands shook. The realization hit her like a wave. Her life had never been truly private,
and the person behind it all was closer than she could imagine. But the worst was still to come.
The next morning, Emily felt a chill before even stepping out of bed. Something in the air told her that the journal wasn't just a warning, it was a challenge. Whoever had been watching her had escalated, and she had no idea what to expect next. Mark suggested they go through the journal together, hoping to find patterns or clues. Emily hesitated, knowing that every page she turned risked uncovering truths she might not be ready to face. But the urgency was undeniable. They had to know who was behind this. Each entry in the journal revealed a new layer of surveillance: locations she had visited, people she had spoken to, even conversations she thought were private. They were all recorded. Her trust shattered. The realization that someone had been living in the margins of her life made her blood run cold. As they studied the notes, a knock echoed through the apartment. Mark froze. Emily's heart raced. No one had a key. They hadn't told anyone where they were staying. Slowly, Emily approached the door, trying to mask the fear curling in her stomach. Through the peephole, she saw a familiar figure, cloaked and indistinct, but unmistakable. It was the same person from the photographs. Emily stepped back, her pulse thundering. "They're here," she whispered. Mark grabbed her hand, his grip firm. Before they could react further, the shadow slipped away as silently as it had appeared. The journal lay open on the table, its secrets now a dangerous map. Emily realized with a sinking heart they weren't just being watched, they were being hunted, but the worst was still to come. Emily couldn't sleep that night. Every shadow in the apartment seemed alive, twisting and shifting just out of sight. The journal's secrets no longer just words. They felt like hands, reaching for her, pulling her into something she didn't understand. Mark tried to reassure her, but even he couldn't hide the tension in his voice. "We need to find out who this is before it's too late," he said, flipping through the pages with a growing urgency. Emily nodded, though her stomach churned with fear. A message appeared on Emily's phone, though she hadn't received any calls or emails. It was just a single line: "You can't run from what you've done." Her fingers trembled as she read it. Every instinct screamed that this wasn't just a threat, it was a promise. Emily remembered a conversation from years ago, a memory she had long buried, a mistake she thought forgotten. Suddenly, she realized the journal might not only be about the present, it could be digging into her past. Every secret she thought safe was now exposed. Mark suggested they go through old files and photos to track patterns, to see if there was someone connected to both past and present. Emily hesitated, feeling the weight of the revelation pressing on her chest. Every step forward seemed to pull her deeper into danger. Just as they were about to uncover a clue linking Emily's past to the shadow, the lights flickered. The apartment grew cold, and a gust of wind slammed the window shut. Emily froze. Somewhere, someone was inside their building, but the worst was still to come. Emily's heart raced as she tiptoed toward the window, but nothing seemed out of place. The wind had stopped, yet a feeling of being watched lingered, heavy and suffocating. Mark stayed close, whispering, "Stay calm. We're together in this." Suddenly, a shadow moved across the hallway outside their apartment. It wasn't just a trick of the light. Someone was there, waiting, and their presence made the hairs on Emily's arms stand on end. She could almost hear a breath, slow and deliberate. Mark grabbed a flashlight, flicking it across the corridor. The beam caught nothing, yet a cold draft brushed Emily's neck. She realized the shadow wasn't outside. It was inside. Their apartment wasn't safe anymore. Emily clutched the journal, the pages now trembling in her hands. The entries she had dismissed as warnings were real threats. Someone had been tracking her for months, possibly years, and their obsession wasn't about revenge. It was about control. Mark whispered a plan, suggesting they split up to search for clues. Emily hesitated, knowing danger lurked around every corner. But before she could respond, a sound, a whisper of her name, sent shivers down her spine. Someone was here, in the apartment with them. As they moved toward the bedroom, the lights went out completely. Emily's heart froze. She felt a hand brush against her shoulder, and she knew this wasn't just a threat on paper anymore. The danger was real, and it was closer than she ever imagined. But the worst was still to come. Emily and Mark froze, listening as the whisper faded into silence. The darkness pressed in, making every heartbeat echo like a drum. She felt Mark's hand tighten around hers, a fragile anchor in the storm of fear. Slowly, they moved toward the living room, each step deliberate. There, on the coffee table, was a letter Emily had never seen before. Her name was scrawled across it in a handwriting that made her blood run cold. It was familiar, but she couldn't place it. Mark looked at her, confusion and concern battling in his eyes. He asked, "Do you know who wrote this?" Emily hesitated, realizing she had blocked out memories long buried. The letter hinted at a betrayal she had buried deep in her past, something she thought was lost forever. As she opened the paper, words leapt out like venom, secrets, lies, and names she recognized instantly. The journal she had been protecting was connected to this, revealing a conspiracy within her own family. Every decision she had made, every warning ignored, had led them here. Emily's knees buckled slightly, but Mark held her steady. The room seemed to shrink, the walls pressing in with the weight of all the hidden truths. She realized the shadow they had seen was never random. It was sent, a message from someone who knew her deepest fears. A sudden noise behind the sofa made them spin around. There, crouched in the shadows, was someone Emily never expected to see again. A face from her past with intentions darker than she could imagine. But the worst was still to come.
Emily's heart hammered as the figure stepped from the shadows. It was David, her childhood friend, now grown, but with a coldness in his eyes she had never seen before. His smile was absent, replaced by a quiet menace that made her skin crawl. "David, why are you here?" she whispered, her voice trembling. He didn't answer at first, just studied her like he was weighing every reaction. The room seemed to shrink as the tension between them thickened, every second stretching painfully. Mark stepped closer, protective. Who is he? What does he want? Emily's mind raced. David held the key to a truth she had tried to forget, a betrayal that had cut her family apart years ago. The letter on the table was just the beginning. David finally spoke, his voice low and deliberate. "You think you know everything, Emily, but you've only seen the surface. Your family isn't what you think. And now, you're in danger because of it." Every word hit like a punch, making the room spin around her. Emily's eyes filled with tears, but anger rose alongside the fear. How could someone she trusted so long hold so many secrets? Her past, her family, even her own choices were all entangled in a web she hadn't realized existed. Before she could ask another question, David stepped back into the shadows, leaving only a chilling warning. "Tomorrow, everything changes. Be ready." But the worst was still to come. The next morning, Emily woke with a pounding headache and a sense of dread she couldn't shake. The sunlight streaming through the window felt like a lie, masking the danger that David had promised. Every sound in the house made her flinch. Mark noticed her unease immediately. "Emily, talk to me. What's going on?" She hesitated, knowing that telling him could put him in danger too. But the weight of secrets was suffocating, and she needed someone on her side. She recounted everything: the letter, David's warning, and the shadow of the past he brought with him. Mark listened, silent at first. Then anger and concern flashed across his face. "We need to find out what he knows, and fast." Emily agreed, but fear gnawed at her. What if David had already acted behind the scenes? Each room in her house suddenly felt unfamiliar, as if the walls themselves held whispers of betrayal. Her childhood memories now felt tainted, unreliable. They decided to investigate David's past, digging into old photographs and letters, piecing together a timeline that Emily had buried in her mind. Each discovery was more unsettling than the last. Connections, betrayals, and truths no one had ever told her. As the sun set, Emily realized the full scope of the danger they were in. Someone had been manipulating everything all along, and now they were watching. But the worst was still to come.
Emily and Mark spent the evening going through the boxes of David's old papers. Each envelope revealed fragments of a life filled with deception and hidden alliances. The deeper they dug, the more unsettling it became. David's life was nothing like the stories he had told. Among the documents, they discovered a set of letters addressed to a mysterious woman. Her name was never fully revealed, only initials that hinted at a connection Emily couldn't place. The letters were affectionate, but carried a subtle threat, as if David's charm had always been paired with manipulation. Mark frowned, holding a particularly worn letter. "Emily, he's been planning this for years. Everything he said about protecting you, lies, pure lies." Emily felt a chill run down her spine. Each word she had trusted now felt like a trap. Determined to get answers, they traced the origins of the letters. Every lead pointed to the same small town where David had grown up, a place he never mentioned in passing. Emily's curiosity was mixed with fear. Returning there could be dangerous, but not knowing could be worse. Late that night, Emily couldn't sleep. Shadows moved strangely in her room, every creak in the floorboards sounding like a warning. She wondered if someone had been following her even before she discovered the letters. Paranoia and reality blurred together. And then a message appeared on her phone, one she hadn't expected, from someone who knew her every move. Emily stared at the message on her phone, her heart pounding. It was simple, yet chilling. "We know what you found. Stop digging or face the consequences." Every instinct screamed danger, but curiosity and determination pushed her forward. Mark insisted they go to David's hometown immediately. The drive was quiet, tension thick between them. Emily's mind raced with questions. Who had sent the message, and how deeply was David's web of lies woven? Each mile felt heavier than the last. Arriving at the town, the quaint streets held an eerie stillness. Every face seemed like a mask, every glance a possible threat. Emily realized David's past wasn't just secretive. It was guarded, almost sacred to those who remained loyal to him. They visited the local library, hoping to uncover records of David's youth. Old newspapers, faded photographs, and town archives began painting a picture Emily couldn't ignore. David had been involved with people who wielded influence quietly, controlling outcomes behind the scenes. A photograph fell from one of the books, depicting David with a woman Emily didn't recognize. Her resemblance to the initials in the letters was uncanny. Emily's stomach twisted. The connections she feared were real, and they were closer than she had imagined. Before she could process, a shadow moved outside the library window, watching. Someone from David's past had arrived, and they weren't friendly.
Emily's breath caught as the shadow slipped through the library's entrance. A tall man in a dark coat approached, eyes cold and unyielding. "You shouldn't be here," he said, voice low but threatening. Every nerve in Emily's body screamed to run, but she stood her ground. Mark stepped forward, shielding her. "Who are you? What do you want?" The man's gaze flicked to Emily, then back to Mark. I'm the last reminder of David's promises, he said cryptically. Emily felt a shiver. Promises? What secrets had David taken to his grave? The man handed Emily a small envelope. Trembling, she opened it, revealing a photo of David meeting with someone from a very powerful circle. Notes scribbled on the back detailed secret deals, lies, and betrayals Emily had never imagined. The truth was bigger, darker, and more dangerous than she had prepared for. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the library's back room. Papers flew and the lights flickered. Emily and Mark rushed to see a masked figure tearing through files, leaving destruction in their wake. Whoever this was, they were searching for something specific, and Emily knew it was connected to David's hidden past. Emily grabbed the envelope and ran, heart hammering. Mark followed, but the masked figure was relentless. Every turn in the corridor brought them closer to a dead end. "We can't let them take it," Emily shouted, realizing the information she held could change everything. Just as they reached the library exit, a hand clamped over Emily's shoulder. She spun, expecting the worst, but what she saw froze her blood. Emily froze, staring into the familiar face of the masked figure. It was someone she had trusted, someone she never expected to betray her. Why are you doing this?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The truth hit harder than any blow. David's secrets had torn even the closest bonds apart. The figure slowly removed the mask. It was Claire, David's former assistant, the one Emily had confided in countless times. "You don't understand," Claire said, her eyes glistening with tears. "I had no choice. He left everything to crumble, and I'm cleaning up the mess he made." Emily's chest tightened. Every betrayal, every lie, every hidden deal, it all pointed back to David. Mark stepped forward, voice firm. "Emily, we need to stay calm. This isn't just about revenge. It's about surviving and exposing the truth." Emily nodded, gripping the envelope tighter. Inside were documents, photos, and evidence that could dismantle powerful people and finally give David's wronged victims the justice they deserved. Claire hesitated, then handed over the last set of papers she had hidden. "You deserve the truth, Emily, but be careful. Some people will go to any lengths to protect themselves." The weight of responsibility pressed down on Emily, but with it came clarity. The danger was real, but so was the chance to change everything. Outside the library, the sun was rising. Emily, Mark, and Claire stood together, a fragile alliance forged from betrayal, pain, and the promise of justice. "We can't undo the past," Emily said quietly, "but we can control the future, and that's exactly what we'll do." Every step forward felt heavy yet liberating, the culmination of a journey filled with secrets, lies, and unexpected courage. As they walked away, Emily looked back one last time, feeling a mixture of loss and determination. She had learned the hardest lesson of all. Truth may be dangerous, but living with lies is far worse. The story was over, but its echoes would teach everyone who dared to listen the value of trust, courage, and the relentless pursuit of truth.